We're in Amsterdam at the Okura Hotel, where BIR, the World Recycling Organization, is celebrating its 75th anniversary. It's also the celebration of this magazine, Recycling International, 25 years. And we're going to chat here at Okura with some industry leaders. We're moving to the US now, to California.
Yeah, but we're coast to coast, right? I mean,
Okay.
really, California is actually small today
Yeah.
compared to
George Adams, he's the owner, co-owner,
CEO.
CEO of
SA
SA Recycling, one of the biggest scrap metal recyclers in the US right now.
That's great.
And you've been on a growth path for, past 2 or 3 years. I mean, there's been massive growth. Why did you do that? Why did you grow?
But really, if you look, you know, I've been growing consistently, right, since since I had 1 yard, right? If you look at how it goes, you have 1 yard, you make enough money after 3 or 4 years, and now you get a second yard, right? If you did it right, and your second yard makes you money, it takes less time to buy the third yard, right? And then it takes less time to buy the fourth if they're accretive. And so if you look at your growth always goes very, very flat. And then it gradually goes up and goes up. And the more yards you get, obviously the more money you make if you bought them right. And your growth starts going up exponential. So if you look at it, it's not so much the last 2 or 3 years is that because obviously buying PSC was 31 yards. And so that was a big jump. But really, we've had very, very steady growth over the last 10 years. And I've been buying as many yards as I could afford, in that time period. And so, what I find is that when the market is really strong for a couple of years and people make a lot of money, then a lot of times people want to sell, but then they want way too much money.
Yeah,
right?
they're not going to do that.
And we're not going to overpay. And then when the market's really bad, then when people want to sell, then it's hard to justify the yards because they're really not making any money.
Yeah.
It can be a good company that's made money in the past, but if they're not really making money for the last couple of years, it's hard for me to justify it.
So what's your best time to buy? Is it sort of in between?
So actually, the fact of the matter is that if you look at our history, right, I really have consistently bought every year, good or bad. But what I find is that lots of times a guy comes to me and he says he wants to sell, and but he really wants too much money for me, right? His business could very well be worth that way, but for me, the way we do our formula, it's too much money. And so, and we'll have a nice conversation, and then what happens is that if he really wants to sell, if he's really serious about selling, then they'll usually come back. And we always leave on good
So
terms.
you have to be patient. That's important. Patience.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, someone has to want to sell.
Yeah.
And if they really want to sell, then I can usually make a deal because we're fair buyers. And other companies aren't going to overpay either. I mean, it doesn't mean that someone couldn't make a mistake, but it's unlikely, right? And so normally what happens is that I'll try to find a way to, make a deal. And there's a lot of ways that you can strategize on what you're doing, whether you don't buy the land or you buy the land in the future, how inventories are handled. I mean, there's a lot of different things that can do to put a deal together. But a guy has to want to sell. And that's really the key. If someone doesn't want to sell, it doesn't make any sense, and it won't happen.
What at this moment is the biggest challenge for you to overcome? What's the biggest issue right now in the U.S. or maybe California, maybe elsewhere?
So look, if you come off of a strong couple years like we just did, then people's multiples are high, and and I feel like we're with the higher interest rates and things like that. We're going into a much lower time, right? Also, my cost of money costs me a lot more money, and so it makes deals a lot more expensive. And so sometimes you just have to wait a little while and let people get used to what the markets are, get used to what the valuations are. And again, someone has to want to sell. And what I find is that even right now where the valuations are high, there's no one else out there that's going to pay that high valuation either. And in a lot of markets, we're really the only logical buyer. If in some of the markets that if you're trying to sell your yard, we're just a logical buyer. There's no one else big enough, in a particular market for us to buy. And so eventually, if someone really wants to sell, they'll come back, and you'll find if someone's getting older, their kids aren't interested in the business, one of their family members is sick. A lot of times, either the husband can be sick or the wife can be ill, and people decide that they need to get
different reasons.
That's right, and at that period of time, then we can usually put it.
So for you, it's important, and for your people, it's important to keep your eyes and ears open, network a lot.
For me, I try to get to know the people, get to know the owners, and answer the questions, and be available to talk to them, right? And so
earlier we talked about hiring people, finding people to do the work, whether it is management or it's just at working at a scrapyard. It was quite tough in the past couple of years. Is it still tough? And what do you do? What do you do to make the job attractive? How do you get new people?
So we'll look at one. It's still really tough. Okay, hiring people is our greatest challenge. One of the best things about buying a company rather than starting one is that you bring all their people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you keep them all. Everyone that you can, and so, but it's still a huge challenge. Obviously, we work really hard to keep the people we have. We have a really good bonus program. I think the things that are really important is that we pay our bonuses every month. It's not once a year. It's not once a quarter.
Okay.
We pay our bonuses every month, and they're not discretionary. They're based on profits. And so because of that, that helps keep the people that we have. New people that we're hiring, we try to explain the bonus program, and so we can show them that really, maybe $18 or $20 an hour isn't as exciting to them to go out and work in a yard, but they're going to make another $2 or $3 an hour in bonus, and so they're going to get overtime, and so a lot of companies worry about overtime. I don't worry so much about overtime.
Pay people.
Exactly right, and so so I'm really looking at the bigger picture on the job they're getting done.
Yeah. If you have, if you operate so many yards, I can't imagine there is a yard that for you as an owner, as a CEO, is a sort of a role model yard.
So look at our flagship yard in the port is certainly, it's in the port. It's our biggest export yard, our highest volume yard, because we're loading ships out of there. It's a beautiful yard, right? It's all concrete. It's got an RTO. We burn the gases from the shredder. We jump a thermal oxidizer. And certainly that is a role model yard. Our yard in Gwinnett, in Atlanta, where we bring in ASR, shredder residue from all the other shredders in that area. Again, a role model yard as far as our yard in Santa Ana. We greenfielded that yard. I have a lot of yards that are that way. What happens is that a yard that I've owned for a while, we've had an opportunity to put money in and fix them up. We try to get them. My brother Terry used to always say, if we can't walk into a yard and say we're proud to own it, we're proud to have our name on it, we shouldn't have it.
Yeah.
Right?
We do something wrong. Yeah, right.
That's right. It doesn't happen overnight, and but once we've owned a yard for a few years, we put fences, we paint it, we plant trees, we try to make it look good,
Okay.
and try to make them yards that we're proud of.
Okay. All right. One final question. The future. If you look like, let's say, 10 years is a long time. Let's say 5 years. Where is SA Recycling in 5 years from now? What is your dream maybe, or what is your target?
Look, I want to be a lot bigger, and so my goal is to continue to grow. I want to expand into some other regions.
Which
I want to
regions?
backfill the other regions. I like to stay south. And so I'm in Ohio, obviously. So there's snow up there, but I'm from California. All right, I really like the warmer climates, and so I really like to stay in south. We're building into Florida. I'd like to grow more in Florida,
Why not Mexico? I heard at Israel show there was a lot of opportunity in Mexico.
So look at Mexico's tough. It's they don't have a strong rule of law. I'm sure if you're a Mexican company and you know those laws, but for me, I feel like the United States is plenty big enough for.
Right.
I don't need to go to other countries.
Okay.
So, but I do want to continue to grow in the regions that are in. I want to continue to add more feeder yards, and I want to buy more scrap. That's my goal. Right now, we're 5 million tons. Look at I would like to double that. Maybe I can't do it in 5 years, but I think I can do it in 10. And
Well, that's a good challenge for the future. Thank you very much.
all right, my
George.
friend.
Thank
You
you.
got it.